Good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Nitin Joshi, Professor in Neurology with teaching experience of 25 years, working as consultant neurosurgeon in Panvel for more than 30 years. Today we will discuss the topic ureterocalicostomy. Commonest group of patients for ureterocalicostomy is patients with Pugh junction obstruction. In this group of patients, contraindications for Anderson-Heinz dismembered pyeloplasty usually becomes indications for ureterocalicostomy. The indications for ureterocalicostomy are thus: 1. Primary PUJ with small intrarenal fibrous Pugh junction obstruction. 2nd. Primary PUJ with long length proximal ureteric stricture. 3rd. Primary PUJ with high riding ureter, that is non-dependent PUJ. 4th. Primary PUJ with grossly thinned out lower pole cortex. 5. Primary PUJ with rotation or fusion deformity like horseshoe kidney. 6th. Prior failed pyeloplasty, that is like a salvage procedure. And 7. Secondary PUJ. Second group of patients is when following lower polar partial nephrectomy, which is commonly performed as nephron sparing surgery in lower polar tumors. Rarely, ureterocalicostomy is also performed for traumatic disruption of Pugh junction. In case of patients with Pugh junction obstruction, diagnosis and salvageability of renal unit must be confirmed on diuretic DTPS scan. RGP is performed on the day of surgery itself. After suitable anesthesia, that is general anesthesia with epidural, for performing RGP as well as for easy and early identification of ureter in retroperitoneum, 6 French open-ended ureteric catheter is inserted in lithotomy position. Once the ureteric orifice on the side of pathology is identified, it is negotiated with 6 French open-ended ureteric catheter and 1:1 diluted Conray is injected slowly to delineate entire ureter, pelvis and calyceal system. This is to delineate anatomical evidence of Pugh junction obstruction, that is dilated pelvis and calyceal system, and narrowing of PUJ with normal calibered rest of the ureter is the usual finding in pathology of Pugh junction obstruction. RGP is also useful to rule out any additional stricture below PUJ in rest of ureter, and also to find out exact length of stricture at level of PUJ, which dictates the type of repair to be performed. After RGP, over glidever 6 French open-ended ureteric catheter is inserted for easy and early identification of ureter in retroperitoneum. After insertion of 6 French open-ended ureteric catheter, 14 French Foley's catheter is inserted under strict aseptic precaution to monitor urine output and prevent distension of urinary bladder intraoperatively. Depending upon 11th rib or 12th rib incision, the incision is marked in supine position. For flank incision, typical kidney position is given. That is, patient is turned to full lateral position. Patient lies on his sound side while his pathological side is facing upwards. The lower leg, which is next to table, is flexed at hip and knee, and the upper leg is kept straight. The pillow is kept between two legs, and to stabilize the patient, broad stinging plasters are applied at level of greater trochanter and shoulder after protecting the bony prominences by Gamgee pads. The other bony prominences and axilla are also protected by Gamgee pad. Patient is brought close to edge of table and positioned such that 12th rib bed lies on kidney bridge. The kidney bridge is elevated to increase the space between costal cartilage and iliac crest and put skin and muscles of anterior abdominal wall on stretch. For better exposure, one can give forward or backward tilt. After giving proper position, parts are prepared, painted and draped. The suction, cautery and mops are kept ready. With 20 number blade, incision is taken from tip of 11th or 12th rib and is extended for 4 to 5 cm backwards or posteriorly. The incision can be extended more if required. The incision taken from tip and then extended backward. This is because pleura comes in relation to posterior periosseum of rib posteriorly, particularly in deep inspiration. While taking incision from tip of 11th or 12th rib and extending backward, the blade should grate upon the bone and should be taken along center of rib. This is because neurovascular bundle is present along the lower border of rib. Then the incision is deepened with cautery to cut all muscles of rib in one layer so as to expose anterior periosteum. The muscles present on the rib are latissimus dorsi superficially and deep to that are serratus posterior inferior muscle, while along upper and lower border of the rib are present muscle fibers of intercostal muscle. The exposed anterior periosteum is incised in center. The incised anterior periosteum is reflected by periosteum elevator upward up to upper margin of rib and downwards up to lower border of rib. The intercostal muscle fibers are separated from upper or lower margin of rib either by cautery or Doyen separator. At the cartilaginous tip of rib, there may be presence of strong muscular attachments. The tip of rib is held by Alice forceps, and after releasing all muscular attachments, the rib is cut with rib cutter so as to expose posterior periosteum. The posterior periosteum of rib forms second layer of incision on posterior aspect. When posterior periosteum of rib is separated accurately, then even underlying pleura gets protected automatically. 11th rib bed or 12th rib bed incision typically shows 3 layers anteriorly as well as posteriorly. The first layer on posterior aspect of incision is formed by muscles latissimus dorsi, serratus posterior inferior, and then anterior periosteum of rib. The second layer on posterior aspect of incision is formed by posterior periosteum, while the third layer on posterior aspect of incision is formed by diaphragm. While first, second and third layer on anterior aspect of incision are formed by muscles external oblique muscle, internal oblique muscle, and transversus abdominis muscle respectively. Thoracolumbar or dorsolumbar fascia is present just below the tip of 12th rib. This thoracolumbar or dorsolumbar fascia is split by artery forceps or two fingers to create some space in retroperitoneum. Then the index and middle finger of right hand is inserted in the space thus created and gradually dilated bluntly to create some more retroperitoneal space. Then with these two fingers, the parietal peritoneum lining the muscles of anterior abdominal wall is stripped off and reflected medially. The muscles of anterior abdominal wall which are cut in flank incision are external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis muscles. These muscles are initially tented upwards by two fingers and then cut layer by layer. This is because while cutting muscles, if any artery starts bleeding, then it can be temporarily controlled by lifting up the muscles by two fingers. While cutting the muscles of anterior abdominal wall, neurovascular bundle is exposed between internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscle. While cutting muscles of anterior abdominal wall, every effort is to be taken to protect subcostal nerve. After cutting the muscles of anterolateral abdominal wall, the access can be improved posteriorly by incising the lowermost fibers of diaphragm as far posterolaterally as possible and then pushing pleura superiorly. Now is the step of development of retroperitoneal space posteriorly so as to reflect Girota's fascia and its contents from posterior abdominal wall. To develop this retroperitoneal space, 2 to 3 wet mops are inserted one after another in whatever retroperitoneal space is available. This results into blunt dissection, thus separating Girota's fascia and its contents from muscles of posterior abdominal wall, namely tendon of transversus abdominis, quadratus lumborum, and psoas major muscle. There is presence of cleavage plane between Girota's fascia and peritoneum due to presence of extraperitoneal fat. With wet sponge in sponge-only forceps, plane is developed so as to separate peritoneum away from Girota's fascia. Once the Girota's fascia is separated, Girota's fascia and its contents are palpated. The ureter is identified as whitish, tubular, non-branching, non-pulsatile tubular structure with its longitudinal running blood vessels in its periureteral adventitial fatty sheath. On left side, ureter is closely related to gonadal vessels. Once ureter is identified, it is held with vascular tissue holding forceps and dissected with mixture parallel to ureter on either side and hooked with infant feeding tube. It is essential to prevent tension on anastomosis, and for this, adequate mobilization of ureter and complete mobilization of kidney is essential. During mobilization of ureter, preservation of adequate amount of periureteric adventitial fatty sheath is essential. For this, The hooked ureter is retracted laterally by operating surgeon, while with padded Devers retractor, peritoneum is retracted medially by assistant surgeon, and the holding bands passing from peritoneum to ureter are stripped off and cut by the blunt tip scissors. During mobilization of ureter, one can skeletonize peritoneum, but one should not skeletonize ureter. In order to prevent tension on anastomosis, in addition to adequate ureteral mobilization, one may even perform renal descensus with inferior nephropexy. For the same, complete mobilization of kidney is important. Now is the step of kidney mobilization. Kidney is completely covered by white fibrous capsule. Outside renal capsule is perinephric fat. This perinephric fat is maximum along the lateral and medial borders of kidney. Outside perinephric fat is fibrous renal capsule called Gerota's fascia. Anterior layer of Gerota's fascia is called as fascia of Toll, while posterior layer of Gerota's fascia is called as fascia of Zuckerkandl. There are multiple thick trabeculae extending from anterior and posterior layer of Gerota's fascia through perinephric fat to renal capsule. Comparatively, stronger bands are present at lower pole of kidney. Opening Gerota's fascia longitudinally is the first step of mobilization of kidney. With long pointed artery forceps, anterior or posterior layer of Gerota's fascia is split so that through the gap created, two fingers of operating surgeon can be inserted. Under the control of two fingers, Gerota's fascia is opened with cautery or stele in upward and downward direction. During mobilization of kidney, assistant holds perinephric tissue at stretch to make holding bands prominent, which are cut either by cautery or blunt tip scissors. Lower pole is mobilized first and then the upper pole. During polar mobilization, polar vessels may come across which will have to be preserved. In case of PU junction obstruction, in approximately 35% of cases, there is presence of lower polar accessory vessel crossing PUJ anteriorly. During mobilization of upper pole, traction is given to lower pole to make attachments of upper pole prominent. Upper pole is attached to undersurface of diaphragm by strong fibrous attachments. These fibrous attachments are identified, isolated, ligated and cut to mobilize upper pole of the kidney completely and away from ipsilateral adrenal gland. For performing renal descensus with inferior nephropexy, ideally skeletonization of renal pedicle is essential. However, precaution to be taken not to disturb blood supply to PUJ and upper ureter. By keeping constant pressure on mobilized upper pole, kidney is displaced downward and medially, and then lower pole of the kidney is fixed to muscles of posterior abdominal wall in right iliac fossa by 3 to 4 interrupted stitches by either 10 vicryl or 20 vicryl or 20 chromate catgut on round body. This significant downward displacement of kidney results into significant redundancy of ureter. The redundant ureter is isolated and mobilized by pushing periuretic adventitial fatty sheet towards ureter to gain additional length of 8 to 10 cm, thus preventing tension on anastomosis. Note, renal descensus with inferior nephropexy is not required in every patient. During mobilization of ureter, one has to proceed from proximal ureter to PUJ and then to renal pelvis. Renal pelvis may be baggy and redundant or non-baggy and non-redundant. Now, the principles of ureterocalicostomy. The lower polar guillotine type of partial nephrectomy and not wedge type of partial nephrectomy while performing ureterocalicostomy. So, when one is performing lower polar guillotine type of partial nephrectomy, aim is to find out the dependent most dilated calyx. So, the calyx which is anastomosed should be most dependent, most dilated, and it should be completely mobilized. For anastomosis between dilated dependent lower pole calyx with spatulated upper ureter, there should not be only mere incision on kidney, that is nephrotomy, but proper resection of renal parenchyma. This level of renal resection depends upon degree of thinning of lower pole renal parenchyma. resection of renal parenchyma should be adequate so that there is no renal parenchyma present below the level of anastomosis. This is because in healing process, cortical parenchyma undergoes fibrosis, and if parenchyma is present at or below the level of resection, then in fibrotic process, anastomosis will get entrapped to cause secondary obstruction. So the adequate resection of parenchyma is key to success. Also, in order to prevent scarring or cicatrization of repair to muscles of posterior abdominal wall, anastomosis is covered with perinephric fat, that is fat flap, or omental flap or peritoneal flap. This flap in fact act as additional source of blood supply. Now, the lower polar guillotine type of partial nephrectomy. Now, the guillotine type of lower polar partial nephrectomy is an important step in case of ureterocalicostomy in diagnosed case of PUJ. During partial nephrectomy for benign or malignant condition, clamping of vascular pedicle, ideally only renal artery, is crucial. This is because clamping of vascular pedicle results into decrease in intraoperative bleeding. Due to clamping of renal artery, kidney becomes soft and supple, its cortical thickness and turgor decreases, so intrarenal surgery becomes feasible. In case of renal artery and vein, if could not be found or identified properly, then after kidney being completely mobilized in such a way that kidney is suspended only by vascular pedicle, that time pedicle bearing area is clamped en masse by vascular clamps like Suttonsky or DBK clamp. For this purpose, thumb and index finger of operating surgeon should go around pedicle bearing area easily. However, it is not the ideal way of controlling vascular pedicle. For identification and skeletonization of renal pedicle, dissection is done with vascular tissue holding forceps and mixture in direction parallel to renal artery and vein. Advantages of clamping only renal artery and keeping renal vein patent are: due to back perfusion, severe small branches of the arteries and vein can be identified individually, so the identified bleeding vessels can be suture ligated to achieve better hemostasis. Second, due to back perfusion through the patent renal vein, the incidence of renal ischemia decreases. Third, with renal vein unclamped, blood from kidney will drain off, so after some time even renal vein will also collapse. If the renal vein does not collapse, then it indicates presence of some additional source of arterial supply to kidney, which should be identified before starting renal resection. Prior to clamping of renal artery, achieving surface hypothermia is mandatory. This is because surface hypothermia prolongs the cold ischemia time to 3 hours from warm ischemia time of 15 to 30 minutes. In warm conditions, that is at body temperature of 37 degrees, if renal artery is clamped for more than 15 minutes, then irreversible damage will start secondary to ischemia. Due to clamping of renal artery, there is no blood supply, so no supply of oxygen and energy-rich ATP molecules, resulting into acute tubular necrosis. However, due to surface hypothermia, that is cooling kidney from body temperature of 37 degree to 20 degree, ideally 15 degree, there will be lowering of cellular metabolism. Due to lowering of cellular metabolism, there is decrease in oxygen and ATP consumption, hence decreased requirement of oxygen and energy-rich ATP molecules. So cold ischemia time is prolonged to 3 hours. Steps of surface hypothermia are: intraoperatively patient is well hydrated. About 10 minutes prior to clamping of renal artery, osmotic diuretic, that is 20% mannitol, is infused. Prior to clamping of the renal artery, sterile ice slush or normal saline or linger lactase is kept ready. Immediately after clamping renal artery, kidney is surrounded by sterile ice slush. For this, sterile steri-drape is taken. Incision is made in the center of steri-drape so as to accommodate mobilized kidney. Now steri-drape is pressed in wound. Sterile ice slush is put over steri-drape to surround the kidney for 15 minutes so as to achieve core temperature of 20 degree. Ideally it should be 15 degree. After 15 minutes, entire ice slush is sucked to prevent systemic hypothermia. Kidney will become soft, supple and blanch provided there is no additional source of blood supply. Before starting renal resection, 2 to 3 bolsters are kept ready. Bolsters are prepared by suturing cut pieces of gel foam strips with 30 Vicryl. After incision along the lateral convex border of kidney, reflect the capsule from renal parenchyma for 1 to 2 cm proximal all around with back of knife 1 to 2 cm proximal to the level of resection. At the site of resection, incision is marked with cautery on kidney surface on anterior as well as posterior aspect. As far as possible, bipolar cautery is used for the resection. Incision is deepened on anterior and posterior surface of kidney by keeping constant orientation of anterior and posterior surface with respect to hilum so as to prevent injury to hilar structures. Renal parenchyma is divided by sharp and blunt dissection. During parenchymal resection, clear field is kept by fine tip suction. As far as possible, strip of capsule beyond the parenchymal line of resection is preserved for closure of the renal defect later. Also, during parenchymal resection, once there is leak of urine indicating opening of pelvic ileal system, one should use Stili and one should avoid use of cautery. This is because one has reached the pelvic ileal system and cautery will cause injury to pelvic ileal system. On the renal surface, transected blood vessels are identified individually and suture ligated with fine absorbable suture material by 40 Vicryl or 40 chromic catechol roundup. Venous bleeders can be identified when renal artery is still clamped and renal vein is still open. Now, in case of gross adhesion because of prior failed pyeloplasty or previous surgery, isolation of renal artery and renal vein individually may not be possible. For polar resection, that time capsule of kidney is reflected upward till the level of resection. At the level of resection with coagulating current, initially incision is marked and then slowly incision is deepened. Renal parenchyma is cut layer by layer with constant suction of oozing blood by fine tip suction. Proximal parenchyma there is controlled by strong hand grip, and this strong hand grip acts like a clamp. In case of gross adhesion secondary to previous surgery or small fibrous renal pelvis, proper delineation of pelvis or PUJ may be impossible. In this situation, between two stay sutures on renal pelvis, pylotomy incision is taken. Finger is inserted in renal pelvis to identify now the lower pole of the renal parenchyma as well as the dilated dependent calyx of the lower pole. Finger renal pelvis also helps to dissect the lower pole of the kidney from surrounding structures. Whenever possible, renal pelvis, PUJ and proximal ureter are properly delineated by taking three stay sutures. 2 stay sutures on renal pelvis, 1 stay suture on proximal ureter with 30 chromic catechol on round body. Of the 3 stay sutures, 2 are taken on renal pelvis, 1 is on proximal ureter. First stay suture on upper and medial wall of renal pelvis, second on lower and lateral wall of renal pelvis, and third stay suture is taken on the lateral wall of upper ureter 3 to 4 cm below PUJ. One may take additional stay suture with 30 Vicryl on medial wall of the upper ureter. Stay sutures on upper ureter are for proper identification of medial and lateral wall of ureter, thus preventing twisting or torsion of ureter during anastomosis. Also, these stay sutures help in handling of the ureter, thus preventing injury and postoperative edema. Since upper ureter receives its blood supply from medial aspect, during incising the upper ureter, it is incised from lateral aspect of the hook ureter and it is incised in slanting or oblique fashion, thereby excising more of lateral wall of ureter and preserving more of medial wall of ureter. This excised lateral wall of ureter acts like spatulation of ureter along lateral wall. Ideally, upper ureter is spatulated for 1 to 1.5 cm along lateral wall. So if there is inadequate spatulation, one can insert well lubricated 7 French inframpedine tube into open ureter, and then with Potts scissor one can perform adequate spatulation of the ureter. After incising and spatulating upper ureter, stay sutures holding ureter is pulled up to confirm that ureter can reach the calyx to be anastomosed easily without any tension to achieve end-to-end, mucosa to mucosa, watertight, tension-free, stented, spatulated anastomosis. After incising upper ureter below PUJ, in situ upper ureter and PUJ has to be tied with absorbable suture material. Even if renal descensus with inferior nephropexy is not recovered so as to gain the additional length, the renal moiety which is remaining after resection must be fixed. This is because remaining renal moiety may rotate, particularly after excision of major lower port. This will result into torsion of renal moiety. Calyx to be anastomosed with spatulated upper ureter must be dilated, dependent, well mobilized with no presence of infundibular stenosis. Initial anastomosis is done by open method, that is under vision. Initially, the sutures are taken. These sutures initially is on the lateral aspect and medial aspect with stay sutures. Then in between the sutures are taken and then they are tied one after another under vision to complete the posterior wall. After posterior wall anastomosis, glide bar is inserted for degestanting. After completion of anterior wall, nephrostomy is inserted, which is by using 12 French or 14 French through upper pole or the mid pole, which is brought out through the separate stab incision. After this, the step of rhinorrhaphy, that is renal closure and coverage. The raw edges of the resected renal parenchyma are approximated by taking 3-0 chromic catgut or 3-0 vicryl sutures through capsule and small amount of renal parenchyma on either side. Before sutures are being tied, already prepared bolsters of oxycell or perirenal fat are inserted in the defect. After this, the pedicle which is clamped is released, keeping the mop ready. After confirming hemostasis, tube drain is inserted through separate stab incision, kidney breach is lowered. After infiltrating local anesthesia, wound is closed in layers. Thank you very much.